When I was buying stickers as a kid, that dopamine hit was strong, and I was like, I would like to do that for other people.
Welcome to Superpower with Kristine Milkovich, the podcast where we help you unleash your inner hero. Whether you're a change maker, a trailblazer, or just looking to level up, this is the space to uncover your unique superpower and transform it into unstoppable momentum. Join me as we dive deep with inspiring guests, sharing their game-changing insights, empowering us all to be the hero of our own stories. Get ready to embrace your deepest purpose, own your power, and change the world one bold move at a time. I cannot wait for you to dive into this week's episode of Superpower. We have local Seattle, Vashon Island illustrator Kate Endle. She is the creator and owner of Kate Endle Illustrations and Fine Art. Her work will fill you up with joy. It is so whimsical, fantastical. There's a childlike element to it, but it is so rich in texture. Her collaging techniques are so cool and so unique to Kate. She has stalls and is present many weekends out of the year at the Pike Place Market. She has a great online shop on her website, an Instagram account, and she is such a delight. One of the many things I took from this episode is do what you love, and there doesn't need to be scale. It doesn't always have to be about being bigger, better, grander. Just knowing your lane and loving what you do and putting all that goodness into the world is the best gift. You're going to love this episode. Check it out. We have such an exciting guest today. I am so excited to introduce you to Kate Endle, illustrator at Kate Endle Illustration and Fine Art. She is local. She is everywhere. You've probably seen her in Pike Place Market, maybe on Vashon, maybe online. She does all the things, and we are honored and so excited to have her. So Kate, welcome to the Superpower podcast.
Thanks for having me.
This has taken us just a minute. Got some schedules to dance around, some life things. So this is a big honor and privilege to have you on the show. I love that I get to call you a friend and a community member amongst a lot of other things. So thank you, Kate, sincerely. I know you could be 8 million other places. So thanks for being here for about 45 minutes with us. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, it looks like it's a sunny day on Vashon Island. You've got some beautiful light coming in, and you know, Superpower we've only been around for a minute. I just started this passion project, as you're aware, just a couple months ago, and it's been really exciting and a learning curve and really fun to spotlight individuals like yourself that are out here in our communities, creating, building, being independent, doing things as you see them, and just creating these really cool business lifestyles. So it couldn't be more timely because I know the weather's kicking up here, and you're going to share with our guests where they can find your art and how it all got started and your illustrations. But I do know that you do have a presence out there in Pike Market. So let's go back a little bit, if it's okay, to your origin story of how did Kate Endle figure out or discover that she had artistic talent, but how did it come into play that it was in the world of illustration? Love to hear that story from you.
Well, I was born in 1971.
Oh, you young thing. We share the same year. Thanks for that.
Yeah. And in about 1972, I started drawing. So I was about
So
just a year and a half
right
old.
out of that little womb, right into it.
Totally out of the womb. Yep. I've got the drawings to prove it. And, I really didn't make the decision, or, I was born with it. And then once I came into the world, it was up to me and the people around me to decide how they were going to nurture that. So I was lucky, I had really good parents, and my parents saw that I had something going on there and was really just put into art classes at a very early age. And that was my reputation.
Mm.
Through elementary school and junior high and high school, I was an artist. That I was not into sports. I was not into theater. I was not into debate club. None of it. It's just been like a full force obsession for over 50 years.
Wow. I did not know
And
that.
it was never, yeah, it was never like, am I going to be a fine artist? Am I going to be a commercial artist? Am I going to be a potter? I love to draw and I love color. Really, it was graphic design or illustration, and I was in art school in the 80s, and computers hadn't really hit the scene yet.
Right.
So my 5 years of art school was all traditional learning. So, and I'm a traditional illustrator. Everything I do is done by hand. I can answer some emails. I can scan some
Chat
things.
GTP, heard of it?
No, I mean, sure, but I'm avoiding it like the plague. I don't even want it mentioned around
Okay,
me.
note to self. We will
Yeah.
not do that
Um,
again. But you're proving a point that it's like really traditional, like actual, like you're saying, like hands to creation. That's how you roll. That's how you create your art.
yeah. Yeah, and it's not to say, that somebody who's not doing traditional illustration, a lot of I think most illustrators are creating stuff digitally these days, and that's not that it's less, it's just that it's a different tool. And I know how to sharpen a pencil, I know how to change a dull blade. I don't know how to do layers in Photoshop.
Yeah.
I don't know how to restart the laptop when it goes down. And I
Mhm.
go absolutely bananas when something technical happens that I can't fix.
Mhm.
I think as we talk, you'll probably hear me say I am a person that likes to take the path of least resistance. That that saying, we can do the hard things. Like
You
that's
don't say
I
that?
don't say that. No,
You're like, "Ain't gonna hear that from me."
no, no. I only like things that are easy.
Comfort is important in life, Kate. I appreciate
Yeah,
that. I love that about you.
yeah, yep, yep,
You're
yep.
like, I'm not
So
trying to prove nothing. I'm good."
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so there's a few things that just popped off my brain listening to you talk is that real like artisan like using your hands, right? And it could be
Mm-hmm.
gardening, cooking, oil painting, illustrating, seamstress, right? Creating clothes and costumes and all the things. But that's a really unique point of difference in what you do. And that is unique to your craft, but your brand, right? Just like you said, there's a lot of illustrators out there. No shame in that game. It's not about comparing. It's
Yeah,
just that's not your flavor. That's not your style. That's not what you bring to the table. So, did that piece of it, was that sort of just always there? Like, given everything you just shared, like you're just, that's more your natural bent. That's what makes that how you feel comfortable. You weren't like, I'm going to go out and learn about all these illustration softwares. And I think you use the term, layering in Photoshop. Like that never really
yeah.
perked you. That was just never a lane that you went
No,
down.
no. I mean, I dabbled in it just to see if I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, there was a chance once upon a time where I could have loved it, and I didn't.
Mm-hmm. Found that out.
I never did. No, I mean, I went to Rhode Island School of Design for continuing education when I was in my 30s,
Okay.
and I took a surface design class, and the whole thing was on computers. And I was like, you know what I've learned here? I've learned that I don't like this.
Hey, great trip out of it, right? There's value in
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And, I learned a lot of things on that trip. I learned that I don't like to do homework and not get paid for it. I don't like to do artwork and not get paid
Yeah.
for it, which is kind of not a great realization, but that's the truth. And that's where I am right now. So there.
Love it. Hearing it like it
Yeah.
is right here live. Superpower with
Yeah.
Kate Endle.
Yep.
So, that being said, for our listeners that have not yet done this, but I am certain after they hear your episode, they're going to run off to your websites and your IG and check you out and look at your art. But for those of us local that do want to actually see it, touch it, smell it, feel it, see your booth, see your setups, tell us where those places are. Because I know just a few months back, I was on Vashon Island with my wife and some friends, and we rolled up into this really cool art event where it was an art studio demonstrating, showing, giving an opportunity for locals to put their works in a booth and sell them. And guess what happened? We walked away with a few Kate Endle pieces that we had not yet had and we love, and they are in our home and they're beautiful. So I have seen the texture and the vibe. But for those listening, was it always like that? Was that like, I hate to say stuff like this because A, it's your brand, and B, you're an artist. So please don't hate me if I'm getting it wrong. But it's magical. It's whimsical. It makes me happy. I smile when I look at Kate Endle art, and I can look at it and see that you have done it with your hands. Like, that is the art you create. That's my perception of it.
Yeah,
So
that's you got it.
before, was there a different look and feel? And I don't know that about you. I'm genuinely asking.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's definitely been a huge evolution. I'm a child of the 80s, and I had probably one of the largest sticker collections in Northeast
My
Ohio.
God.
9 sticker
Oh,
books.
wow. Okay.
No little sticker bag for
slight collector / hoarder. Like, let's modern terms.
Yes, highly organized as well. I don't want my puffies next to my oilies. You know what I'm saying?
Don't mix my food on a plate. I'll cut you.
So when you look at my artwork, it's definitely reminiscent of that 80s sticker, Mrs. Grossman, Lisa Frank, World, Pac-Man, Strawberry Shortcake. And because I grew up in Northeast Ohio, I was close to American Greetings. American Greetings is located in Cleveland, and I went to the Columbus College of Art and Design for school where I got my illustration degree. So that company was always kind of looming in the background. And my mom worked at a bookstore for 32 years, and she worked in the children's department.
Okay.
And so I was exposed to a lot of children's books, a lot of paper products, wrapping paper, greeting cards, bookmarks, the whole thing. So that's where I was kind of like, oh, I definitely want to be somebody that makes stickers, or that, when I was buying stickers as a kid, that dopamine hit was strong. And I was like, I would like to do that for other people. And I didn't have anything to say, there wasn't I think one of the big differences between a fine artist and a commercial artist is a fine artist kind of has a mission and a statement, and commercial artists are kind of serving everybody. And so I'm always looking to serve all of the people all of the time. And that's why my subject matter is, I do everything from like people to animals to, taking inanimate objects and putting roller skates on them.
Like the one in my kitchen, the rainbow roller skater with strawberries and things.
With the strawberries.
Love.
Yes, the strawberry roller skater with rainbows. So that's straight out of my sticker collection.
Oh, so good.
Yeah. So, that drive was there. What has changed over the years is the technique and the style, as it evolves naturally. And I've probably had the same painting style for about 30 years. And I started collaging about 20 years ago. They're two different styles, but when you come to my booth at Pike Place Market, it might look like you're looking at a booth of two different people, but it's really me. And I work in probably 5 or 6 different styles. I just have to kind of rein it in with my table at the market, because I always have so much art, because I love to make it and I love to sell it. It sells really well. And I'm really just wanting to work with art supplies.
Okay.
So it's, I've probably done 50 different iterations of my winter fox, because everybody loves the winter fox. So, or bear by the river, or, Sasquatch sitting on a mushroom, or gnome reading a book. Like, I've done a gazillion
like iterations,
different versions of that. Yeah. And I don't mind doing that, because I just like to watch the paper absorb the paint, or I like to take the knife and watch it go through the paper.
Yeah.
It's really like very visceral, tactile. It's not so much that I love people touching my art
Yeah.
also. It's all sealed, so it's not fragile,
Right.
and there's a tactile
You get
quality
like
to
that
it that's
dopamine hit, right? That you talked about earlier, Kate. I mean, when you're
yeah.
actually creating it, like I even kind of see you light
Yeah.
up when you're talking about the actual technique.
I'm adhering paper to a stretched canvas, and that stretched canvas is 1 3/4 inch, so it's pretty thick. So if I have a 4x4 canvas, it almost has the feel of a brownie.
Mm,
Like it's that size. And then if you're looking at my 4x6, that's an ice cream sandwich.
okay.
And then if you're holding the 12x12, it's a pizza box.
Oh man. Okay, now I'm starving.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Sure, sure.
You shared earlier you're not originally from here. You weren't born in the Pacific Northwest or Seattle. So, what after school and coming up and building this illustrious sticker collection and being around this influence of like living near American Greetings and your mom, really influencing, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but sort of supporting your desire to be a creative and be an artist. What pathway or what age were you? What brought you to the Pacific Northwest? Tell us a little bit about that transition.
Well, I had graduated from CCAD in 1995. So the plan was to move back to Cleveland. I grew up in a really small town, Chagrin Falls, Ohio, which is like 45 minutes outside of Cleveland. And the dream was to live in Cleveland Heights and work for American Greetings. And so I moved back home and I got a job at an art supply store and I was freelancing. And in the course of 2 years, I had 9 interviews with American Greetings. 9.
Whoa.
And yeah, and they never hired me.
Jeez.
Yeah, the lesson there is they saw that I was a freelance illustrator. And when you're working for a greeting card company, you have to master every single technique,
Mhm.
which I had down. I really could do every single
Yeah.
technique. But when you look at my portfolio, there was a consistent style running through the portfolio. When you're looking at a portfolio to hire somebody for a greeting card company, you want the portfolio to look like, 20 different artists you might be
Dabbled
looking
in
at.
that.
But it's,
Yeah.
yeah. Or, the other option there is that you have one style and it's so successful, like a Ziggy or a Garfield or that type
Hmm.
of thing, and then they buy that outright, which is not, I'm not down with that.
Okay.
So I was heartbroken
Oh,
that they didn't
they
hire
crushed
me,
your
but
original dream. Kind of.
yeah,
Yeah.
but they did crush the original dream, but there was a whole other dream that I didn't even know that I
There you
had.
go.
And that
Special
is,
sauce right there.
yeah, as I get older, that is kind of a superpower that we all have, is that it's the hindsight. Like once you get into your 40s and your 50s, you're like, "Oh, that's why that happened." And
Right?
that's sort of, I think, the key to happiness is you understand your mistakes, and then, and the faults, quote unquote faults and wrongs that people did against you. And, if you're lucky, you get to figure out why that happened and how you can do it better and what it will teach you. And, through that experience, I learned that I want to be a freelancer. I want to own the rights to my work. I want to work on all sorts of different projects. And, I like working for myself. And I
Yeah.
didn't realize how much that I liked working for myself. I thought I wanted to be in the corporate scene. I thought I wanted to be like a little lady with little shoes and a little bag
Little
and
briefcase.
like going places, and I am that little lady and I do like doing
you,
those
you
things.
you are going places all
I
the
just
time.
don't want it to be the same job
Right.
Monday through
You're
Friday,
doing it
9 to
on
5.
Kate Endle's terms.
Yes.
You're selecting the bag and the location. I love
Yeah.
that so much.
Yeah.
You said something really important. It's a term that I've heard a number of times. My wife has said it to me more than once over 12 years is, sometimes rejection is protection.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's kind of a simple thought, but it's like, wow, you just said it, it's like you weren't supposed to go down that lane or that train or the whole sliding doors movie concept, right?
Yeah.
We all sort of stumble along in one way or another and kind of find our way. That is a cool thing about aging. I appreciate that you outframed it that way. It's kind of one of the coolest things, right?
Yeah,
Just the
absolutely.
process.
Yeah, it's a nice place to be for sure.
So, that being said, you came out to Seattle. You kind of started your life here, and I'm going to go OG for a minute. When I first had the pleasure of meeting you in Seattle, you were also working at an art store, and it was downtown. Help me on First, maybe. Do I have that right?
It was Seattle Art Supply, and it was on 8th
Yes,
Avenue next to the bus station, is where it started, and it finished on Western Avenue, just north of Pike Place Market. So I've
that's the
really
one.
been, yeah, I've been in and out of that part of downtown for 30 years
Gosh.
working.
And that being said, what part would you say just the whole Seattle vibe scene? Because, you're giving us this, kind of origin storyline. We're the same age, by the way, go 1971. And back in the day, I mean, it's still a really great, cool city. I love it very much, or I wouldn't be here. But I mean, oh my gosh, the music scene, the art scene, the downtown scene, and just so much of the historical things that had and still do put Seattle on the map. How did that affect you developing as an artist and maybe even some of your styles or the personality and the flavor of Kate Endle illustration? Like, what does that look like for you? How's that impacted you?
Well, I did move here for music. The whole grunge thing was going on, and I was cuckoo balls for that whole music scene. And I thought, geez, like a gazillion other people, if that's happening in Seattle's a relatively small town back then, what else is going on? And it
Mhm.
wasn't just the 90s, it was like the Sonics and Jimi Hendrix and Heart and Queensryche. And I mean, I was just like,
Endless.
the breadth of music is just unbelievable. So I really kind of wanted to get in on that scene. I didn't want to be part of the music scene. I wanted to be able just to see any kind of live music any day of the week. And you can do that in Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland's got an amazing music scene.
Isn't Chrissy Hine from there?
She's from Akron,
Okay,
but
sorry.
there,
Same state.
yeah, same state. It's the reason why, there's a reason why the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is in Cleveland.
Right,
And
right.
Detroit, Rock City, that whole like, Great Lakes.
Yeah.
There's, stuff going on up
But
there.
you came here for I mean, originally, like a lot of people wouldn't know that about you. That's pretty
Well,
cool.
that and it's the way I got out here was just kind of funny. I was really looking at probably five different big music cities in the country, and my mom was like, please do not go to Seattle. Like, it's so far away. And so she said, you can go to Seattle, but I need you to do some research. I mean, I'm 25 years old at this point, and she's giving me homework.
You're
And
like,
I'm
"Back
like,
off, mom."
yeah, I'm a free agent. But it was really good advice. She was like, I need you to just be forward thinking. And I want you to contact the Chamber of Commerce for each city and see how they're advertising their city and what's going on. And I was really interested in being able to recycle. And I was really interested I wanted to invest in real estate.
Okay.
And so, because I knew that my life as a freelance artist, I would need multiple income streams. So
Smart.
that was my goal. I wanted to own property by the time I was 30. And that's exactly what I did. I moved here when I was 25 and I bought my condo like 3 months into being 30 years old.
And that was over in the U Village area, right, Kate? Because
Yeah.
I met you during that time in your life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was, my hand was forced. There was another dream that was crushed. I was, you know, engaged to be married, and that fell through. And the plan there was I was, probably going to move to London with my new husband. And
Okay.
so when we broke up, I was like, all right, I'm getting my own place. Like I'm not going anywhere. My mom thought she could give me a homework assignment that I would fail at.
Oh,
And then that would keep me from.
right.
Oh, she's still
I'll
so
show
mad.
her.
She will not buy anything from American Greetings because she's still angry at them for not
Oh my,
hiring me.
she is protective mama bear,
Oh
like
boy.
extreme. Oh my God, that's the cutest.
Is it though? Yeah.
Well, I mean, who would ever buy that over Kate Endle illustrations? But
Yeah.
that's another conversation.
Yeah. So that report from the Chamber of Commerce, like
Yeah.
that sold me. I was
Yeah.
like,
And
okay,
she just thought you were going to be like, peace out and moving. I'm not doing
right.
this in Seattle.
That and it was the home of, Chris Cornell
Yeah.
and Soundgarden. So like sign
So
me
your
up.
mom's plan backfired. Sorry, mom.
Yeah, I'd never even been to Seattle. I'd never even
Isn't
been
that
to the
something?
Pacific Northwest. Yeah, it's unbelievable
Uh,
to me that I did that. That was
well,
talk
what?
about not wanting to do the hard things. That was excruciating. I shouldn't say it was excruciating because I think I just went numb and just
Well,
moved forward and here we are 30 years later.
well, I was just going to say in the 20s, right? I mean, talk about being just, if we're so fortunate, and lucky to be nimble and sort of like, we don't know what we don't know. And kind of that courageous cup, I think just it's a little bit easier to jump in. And you're so right. You started the podcast with, the easier road, or I don't, I like my comfort and I know we're being tongue in cheek, but that's pretty courageous as a 20 something to leave the Midwest and head out to Seattle on your own and make it work. It's
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
I saw the writing on the wall. It was like all my high school friends had moved back home and were getting married and having kids, and I wasn't ready to do that yet. And I've always loved going back home. I've been really fortunate to be able to do that and to be able to see my high school friends and hang out with their kids. But it just wasn't for me. And I knew that Seattle supported an alternative lifestyle, and I wanted to be around people that were tolerant and accepting and
Mhm.
nurturing that kind of community. So
Mhm.
it just worked. As far as like I never really jived with the art scene here. I think that if I'd gone to Portland, I
Okay.
may have been more involved in the art scene there. I belong to the Graphic Artists Guild here in Seattle. That was like some really nice like networking opportunities, and I joined SCBWI, which is the Society of Children's Book Illustrators and Writers, and that was really important. But the friends that I had were not artists. They
Okay.
were, I met my core group of girlfriends at Barnes and Noble in Bellevue, of all places.
Mhm.
I was, just 2 months hired holiday help there and ended up with, 30-year friendships out of that job. And, and I worked at Seattle Art Supply for 10 years and loved that, loved the people that I worked with there, but I just didn't find support or comfort around artists and musicians.
Right. So it's kind of that it's a great reminder or lesson that you might be drawn to doing a thing or being creative in a way, but maybe you don't always like easily fit into the culture, right? Or the group,
Yeah, and I think
right? A
it's,
little bit.
it's hard here. It's in the Pacific Northwest. We talk about the Seattle freeze, and that's a real thing.
Mhm.
And I don't know really how I've survived here as well as I have, other than that I did meet a great group of gal pals that,
Mm.
I'm still with today. And yeah, it's just been an interesting journey with relationships. Now I live on Vashon, and that's an amazing community, as you well know, that's filled with artists and musicians.
For
And,
sure.
now a lot of my friends here on the island are that type. And
Yeah.
so, it's been nice to know that I can make friends in my 50s, new friends in my
Yeah.
50s, which has been super fun.
That is refreshing. It's
Yeah.
like we don't get so stuck in our ways that we're not, continuing to nurture and grow these new spheres so that leads me into a curiosity I have, because I don't know if it's a rumor, but you're going to correct me if it is. So Midwest gal, back in the day, you go to art school. I think you used the word cuckoo bananas, which I'm going to repeat that. I love it. Cuckoo bananas for music and the music scene, and maybe just like a little bit starry eyed about all of that biz. And is it true that you kind of had a dream, a premonition that you might grow up and marry a rock star?
No. No. I don't know where you heard that story.
Okay, so that is a
No.
rumor.
No. I didn't want to have anything to do with anybody in the music and art business.
Okay.
Really,
So
romantically.
that is
Romantically.
even for the dating side. I heard the culture friend, like hang buddy side, but like you were like in general. I just didn't want to be around those
No,
groups.
I mean, they're an unstable bunch stereotypically.
You're like, I'm not that crazy.
Well, also, like, I can barely manage my own creative energy. Like, I was like, no, thank you. Which, it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
haha. Now I'm
Wa-
married. Now I'm
watch
married to a musician and an artist. So
double whammy.
it's total
Double
double whammy. But
whammy.
you know, I have the most responsible musician, artist, husband on the planet. So
Yeah.
it's really all about, being able to do the hard things responsibly. And my husband's like a master at that. So I really,
Mm,
I did not have great dating experiences in college. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I had great dating experiences and I dated a lot of people.
mhm.
But I just, it's difficult with artists and musicians. And I'm difficult. I mean, I'm not a difficult personality, but I want to work constantly. And most of my relationships ended because I didn't want to go to the football game and I didn't want to, you know, go to Easter Sunday with my
Right.
boyfriend,
With the crazy family
right.
or
Like
whatever.
I need to stay home on Thanksgiving because I want to paint. Like,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
one of the many reasons why I don't have children.
Yeah.
So I've just been obsessively making, and a lot of people cannot handle that.
Right.
And it's hard. It's a
Yeah.
hard thing to manage, and I just didn't want to watch somebody else go through the same kind of struggles that I was going through.
That
I
you were
wanted to
managing.
right, I wanted to witness somebody that had different struggles that I did.
Right, right. Well, it's not a stereotype, but the artist life, right? I mean, this is how I perceive it because I'm so intrigued by it. I love your art. I just, your talent, your skill and everything, your whole brand, illustration, personality. But it seems like, kind of like I'm going to grow up and be a supermodel. Like, I mean, it's a very, as you're sharing with us and educating us on this episode, like you worked at the store and you worked at the art place and you did this and you did that. And still right now and I want to hear more about your actual stall at Pike Place and where anybody in the world can find your art. And what does that look like from a business model? But you're hustling, you're grinding, you're creating, you're working, you're marketing, you're in sales. So how do you navigate all that? I mean, what does that look like? Are you a lone soldier? Do you do it with somebody? Do you have a team? Are you super autonomous in all of that? Educate us a little bit for those of us that don't know a lot about the illustration world or the way you're doing it, I should say.
Well, I've always worked for myself. I really don't have an agent. An agent is what you have at Pike Place Market who sells for you. I've had my stepdaughter and her boyfriend work for me occasionally down there when they're in town and looking for
Mhm.
some extra cash. But,
Sure.
that's a whole nother job in and of itself, managing people that work for you. I should have somebody working for me. I should have somebody that's preparing my canvases and unloading my boxes. I am getting deliveries all the time of art supplies and, hundreds of books at a time. I'm a children's book author and illustrator, and I order my books wholesale and I sell them resale on my website and through Pike Place Market. And, all that stuff takes time. I often say that like half my job is keeping my studio organized. I would love to
Right.
have a studio
Oh,
manager. I would
stunning.
love to have a illustration agent that's out there calling companies trying to get me licensing gigs. I do all this stuff on
Mhm.
my own, and I don't know how I do it, honestly. I procrastinate a lot, and the procrastination, like if I don't want to do if I don't want to paint a whole bunch of canvases black, I will go into the house and rearrange the furniture and dust behind the couches. That's
Right.
how I procrastinate, is by doing
Oh, good. It's
housework.
not just me. Okay. So you get
Yeah.
the dust bunny, dust bunny. Oh, no, no. Bring her back. Bring her back. Come
Yep.
back, Milkovich.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's a big dance that I do. And like I started off saying earlier, I only like to do fun things. And what that really means is first of all, everything always gets done. But I only do the things that I want to do in the moment, which is, I kind of am operating a little bit like a toddler in that way. Like, I only want to do the things I want to do, but it works.
It
And
works.
it
Yeah.
works. Yeah. So
And you get to design your own life and make those choices. And that's a really empowering place to be in. And it sounds like that's always kind of been in you. I mean, sounds like that's kind of always sort of been how you roll
yeah,
and your true
yeah,
authentic self.
yeah.
Yeah.
Midwest work ethic. It's,
Right, right.
you
Oh
know,
yeah, for
go, go, go.
sure. Well, on that note, Kate, so just curious, and then I want to talk a little bit about what Casper Babypants is and how you collaborate with your husband, if you'd be willing to talk a little bit about that for our listeners. But before we jump into that, the hiring, I'm just going to say it this way, a part-time studio person, that would set you up for your studio time, maybe an admin or a social media person. Do you feel like part of it is that you're just not interested in scaling that way? Or that would then mean you, to your point earlier, you'd have to be sort of a people manager and a slight HR person. And you'd have to talk about, is it time for a merit increase? And is that just kind of some of the stuff that you just don't really want to partake in? And so, it's like kind of like it ain't broke, don't fix it. Or what do you think that's about?
There's a theme that will be running through this discussion, and it's I don't like to do the hard things. And it's incredibly difficult to manage people. I managed people at Seattle Art Supply, and I thought I was good at it, but I mean, people did not like me because I am from the Midwest. And if you got time to clean, motherfucker, if you got time
That
to
time to
lean,
lean?
yeah, you got time to lean, you got time to clean.
Yes, I learned that in the
No,
restaurant world.
yeah, no reading the
Yeah.
newspaper at the cash register.
Well, and it's always that tricky thing of not wanting to like marginalize and box people up based on states and culture and this and that and how they were raised. But the bottom line is, I'm originally from Michigan. We've chatted about that. You mentioned Detroit earlier, and I've been told that I can sometimes represent as an East Coaster, direct, say it like it is, get in there, doesn't mean that you can't have a sensitivity or you're not a compassionate person. But I do think there is sometimes a style. And maybe you just got that Midwest vibe where like, I don't have time to F around. Like, let's
Yeah,
get to work.
yeah, yeah. That's been kind of a struggle too. Living out here is like I am pretty direct, and that does not. I mean, I don't know. I think that kind of directness can be intimidating in these parts
Mm-hmm.
sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's another reason why I kind of like just working on my own. I don't
Yeah.
want to have to tell people, to do this way. I don't want to tell them 5 times to do
Yeah.
that. It's a
That's right.
total energy suck. So, I've just had to find a balance and find a way to, like, I can't do all of the things. I can
Yeah.
do a lot of things really, really well, but I just kind of have to leave it at that. And, the fun thing about my job is that I just don't know who's going to call me. I don't know if I'm going to make $15,000 today or this month
Mm,
or this year. Like,
right.
it's, my
Such a
first
good point.
my first year in business, I made $9,000.
Hey,
I mean,
there you go.
and it's to have a staff depend on the roller coaster of income is not really what I want to
Yeah.
wake up and worry about. So
You're
it's,
not looking to sign up for that anytime soon.
yeah,
That's not your career goals,
yeah. And
needs, or aspirations.
and a big goal of mine too is to make sure that I could support myself.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a child of the 80s, Oprah, got a lot of Oprah television
Got a lot of
time.
Oprah isms up in there.
Yeah, and she had a guest. I really wish I could remember who said this because it's just really kind of created the path that I want to follow. But she had a guest on that said, "Become the man you want to marry," and it stopped me in my tracks.
Mm.
I'm like making the Stouffer's French bread pizza after school, and I have Oprah on, and I hear her guest say that, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I want to
It's
do that."
that safety of independence and confidence and knowing that no matter where life takes you, you're going to be okay. You're going to figure it
Well,
out.
yeah, and it's funny. Like I say it out loud, and it's such a like dated, kind of almost antiquated way of thinking. But it does. It's formed this like independence that I want, whether it's
Mhm.
from a partner or a family or work. I like to, I can succeed on my own has always been really
Right.
important.
Right. What a gift and what a great reminder. That's what I love about doing these episodes. So thanks for making sure we heard that again here. So, some of your other side projects, collaborations, tell us a little bit about individuals, be it your spouse, which would love to learn and hear about that, or be it other artists and creators. What, from Kate Endle illustrations, just your tenure and your background, who are some of the people or some of the passion projects that you've created that have been really exciting for you, or even from a sort of commercial standpoint, an illustration commercial standpoint? Educate us. What have
Well,
you been up to over there, Kate?
when I was starting off illustrating, I was working in a painted style, which I'm currently working in these days. But that's all I did. I was just a painter. And I had this really amazing meeting with Dale Chihuly. A friend of mine was working down at his boathouse and said, "You really need to come down here." This was in spring of 2001 and, see what's going on. And so I just thought I was going to go down there and just kind of check out the lay of the land. And Dale was filming a KCTS special, so I knew I wasn't going to see him while I was down there. And I met his assistant at the time, and his assistant was asking me all about what I do. And I gave him my business card, which was brightly colored. And he'd said, "Oh my gosh, Dale's going to go crazy for your art. Could you bring your portfolio down?" And I said, "Sure, I'll give you guys a call and, we'll set something up." And he's like, "No, go get it right now."
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's intense. It was
Defining
intense. Yeah.
moment.
So I brought my portfolio down and I met with Dale Chihuly, and I am a big collector of all things. I often say I'm a collector of collections, and so is Dale. And so we really bonded over, vintage bathing suits and children's books and folk art, and his space is just amazing. But we really did hit it off, and I ended up walking out of that meeting with a very large box of acrylic paint that he uses. If you see him do his painting sketches, he uses golden fluid acrylic, and he's spraying it all over large sheets of heavyweight watercolor paper, and gave me reams of watercolor paper. And I just thought, beautiful art supplies, but I'm a painter. I'm not really sure what I'll do with these supplies someday. And went home and was just kind of on that high. And, we had discussed doing a children's book together, and he was going to take all the original art that I had as a trade. And it was, it was dizzying, the first meeting that we had. And a
Man.
very, very long story short, the
Ah.
whole thing fell through, and I was devastated. And, fast forward to 9/11, when the terrorist attack happened. That was, devastating for obvious reasons, but that pretty much decimated my freelance career because nobody was hiring anybody
Okay.
to do anything. So a year went by from that meeting that I'd had with Chihuly, and I looked at those paints that he'd given me. And, with my background at Seattle Art Supply, we had a very large, we had the best paper selection in town. And so I thought, well, I'm going to take some of his paints and I will start hand painting some of these papers that we're selling here at Seattle Art Supply. And I just went crazy and made all these hand painted papers and was cutting and collaging, and I was gluing them onto these big sheets of watercolor paper. And I was tearing it up. And, I had amassed such a large collection. I knew I was going to have to sell them, but I didn't want to have to frame them because that's a whole nother project in of
Yeah.
itself. I don't like to do the hard things, and framing is hard. But at Seattle Art Supply, I opened up a box of, thick canvases, 1 3/8 inch canvases, and thought, okay, I'm going to glue onto these canvases. That will eliminate the need to frame. And so I just went nuts.
Oh
And
my gosh.
that's how I started collaging.
This is literally your collaging coming out story right
Right,
here.
right. And, the way that Chihuly relationship dissolved was so devastating. And a lot of my artist friends at the time were like, he can't treat you that way. You've got to really lay into them. You can't, you have to tell them they can. And I was like, there's something going on, and I don't know what it is. And I'm not going to pretend like I know what it is. I'm just going to let that sit. And it was a
Right.
good thing, because what had happened, and this is public knowledge, so I'm not, this isn't anything confidentiality issues that we're
Yeah.
dealing with, but Dale Chihuly is mentally ill
Mm,
and battles, with that. And I had caught him on a high.
okay.
And a month later, he had hit a low. And that's
Gotcha.
what that was about. That had nothing to do with,
Sort of the perfect storm of when you
right. It
intersected.
didn't have anything to do with not being treated properly. It was
Sure.
difficult, but years later, they contacted me and they wanted me to create a whole line of product for a museum that we know as, the Chihuly's Museum of Garden and Glass. So, that was really a full circle moment that, if I'd burned that bridge, probably wouldn't have happened. And that was,
Right.
that was a huge turning point and a huge learning lesson. When I met him and we were on that high together, there was a little voice inside me that was like, do not hitch your train to the star, because you will be left in the dust.
Mm,
And it goes back to Oprah, like, become the man you want to marry, become,
mm.
that, like, do it yourself. Like,
Yeah.
don't, getting your big break and relying on others is amazing. There's, that's a huge gift in life, but I couldn't see what it was at the time.
Right.
I couldn't see it as a catalyst for inspiration. I saw it as, I want to be affiliated with a rock star.
Mm.
And that was not the path that was supposed to go.
So, like, the ego side of that we all have stories around it. Don't need to be an illustrator to have that be something I think we've all walked through. That's such an important story, Kate. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for just sharing so many tidbits about that. Like, you got your hopes up, you got excited, right? Shiny diamond, you got your head turned, this world famous, well-respected artist, and you're literally like at his houseboat or at his
Oh
at
yeah.
his
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
studio.
Yeah.
So I mean, that is so relatable, but then it blew up and you were like, wait, hold on, like, I can't put all my eggs in a basket. i
Oh
gotta
yeah.
i
It
gotta
was,
make my own basket.
well, and not only did the Dale Chihuly basket blow up, but Seattle Art Supply was going out of business, and the relationship that I was in, where I thought I was going to get married, fell
Right.
apart. I mean, everything was falling apart, and
It was that kind of a year where you're
yeah,
like, mama needs a break.
yeah. And 9/11, and I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna have to reinvent myself. And so that's, to answer a very
Oh
long answer
gosh.
to your question, he was a big deal. I still have
Okay.
his paints in my studio,
Yeah.
and his special label Chihuly. Oh, it's just, I look at it
Well,
and think, oh,
for one, it makes an incredible career story. But part two, that is literally where you started conceiving your collaging technique
yeah.
and, being
Hmm.
industrious and creative and having that ingenuity of like, oh, there's these pieces, like getting back to, which I think is hilarious that you think you don't like to do the hard stuff because everything you've done has been very extraordinary. And of course, it's all hard because it takes such courage. But that's a cool Chihuly story. Tell us about your collaboration with Casper Babypants and just your work around creating that. And who is that?
Well, I did hitch my train to that star And that's worked out pretty good. So my husband.
So for those that don't know, you are married, correct?
Yes, I am married to Chris Ballew, who is the lead singer-songwriter for the Presidents of the United States of America, which was a band that was getting together, as I was moving to Seattle, that I was not interested in. They were like a little too poppy for me. But the first time I laid eyes on my husband, his band was opening up for Soundgarden. And I missed both President shows I think it was at Mercer Arena, because I showed up late with a friend 2 nights in a row. And I was like, well, I guess I'm never going to get to see the Presidents live, because this is going to be the only opportunity where I will see them. So, that was in 95. And then he and I ended up getting married in 2010.
That is crazy.
And that is crazy. And when I met him, he was still with the Presidents. I met him at a party, and, he had just gotten out of a relationship, and he was not in a good place. And I was like, boy, that guy's a dud. Based on his stage personality, I was like, boy, I thought there'd be a little bit more life in him. And I was in bad shape. I had just broken up with another boyfriend, and I was, it was no picnic being around me. And that was at a Christmas party. And then I had moved to Rhode Island to go to Rhode Island School of Design for 6 months with a friend of mine. And when I came back, he had infiltrated my friend group. And I was like, all right, here's this guy again.
Stalkerville.
And
Chris.
And he was so much fun. 6 months later, He'd healed from his relationship. I had healed from mine. And I was like, oh, it's go time.
You're like, he's not a dud. He's actually really fun.
No, and he was dating somebody else, and my friends were like, don't even go there. And I was like, I'm totally going there, because this, I kept saying, I love this guy. I love him. I love him. And so I waited for about 3 or 4 months for that relationship to run its course for him.
Yeah.
And then, we've been together ever since.
That's amazing.
And so early in our relationship, maybe 6 months in, his rock band, the Presidents, they were going on tour, and he was like, I think it would be amazing if you could sell merchandise for us, because you could really sell anything that you like. And I am a good salesperson, and I really sort of relish the idea of being in my 40s and going on tour with a rock band.
Kind of a fantasy moment. Hello.
Yeah. And I was like, if we don't work out on a tour bus, we're not going to work out in a marriage. So let's just find out real quickly.
Like premarital counseling and with a rock star on the road having fun.
Yeah. And,
that worked out.
And his bandmates, I don't think were really particularly excited to have the lead singer's girlfriend. But Chris was like, she's going to sell an incredible amount of merchandise. And I did. God. And so
smart guy.
I think that, everybody was on board to have me back for tour. And it was really, really fun. And, our relationship just kind of really blossomed when we were on tour. And, we ended up getting married at the Showbox during a President's show. And we had Chris's drummer, Jason Finn, and his guitarist, Andrew McCaig, as our witness, because
so fun.
They had witnessed us in our early years on tour. And then, when we were at home together, Chris would sit on my couch and he would write songs for the Presidents. And I would be at my drawing table working on my children's stuff, my children's books. And he would come over to my table periodically and say, I think I can do the music version of what you're doing. And I said, well, go for it. I'll be your album cover artist. And, in 3 weeks, he wrote an entire, the first Casper Babypants album, which was to be Casper Babypants, which is his, he was doing Casper Babypants from 2008 right up until the pandemic. So, over 10 years.
So your husband, again, for those listeners that are just learning about Kate Endle and Chris, your husband. So Chris Ballew is the co-creator with you of the children's music phenomena, Casper Babypants. Do I have that right?
Yeah. So I do all the album cover artwork for him. That was 19 albums. And
wow.
I'm not
19 albums, Kate?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
He didn't.
I didn't realize that catalog of work was so large.
Yeah. Every 9 months, he'd come out with an album, just like a mother giving birth. Every 9
Fertile
months,
Chris.
like clockwork. Yeah,
That's
it was
incredible.
astounding to watch him.
Wow.
He is something else. I mean,
Just a machine.
yeah, really,
Yeah.
and just his way that he works with words, and he still does it today in our everyday life. If he's
Yeah.
making eggs or sees a face and yolks, it's a song, it's a phrase,
Right.
it's a joke,
Yeah.
it's a something. He can just is a
Just
master with words.
he's wired that way. That is just
Yeah.
his creative bent. His brain works in that way.
Yeah.
Oh man, very unique. I mean, not a lot of people, creative artist or otherwise, can say, let alone I've worked with my spouse. But I've created a brand, and a very successful one, and one with a lot of credentials. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun. We've been
Something
really
to be
lucky
proud
that
of.
way. Yeah.
So, couple things as we're starting to, my gosh, we're going to literally have to have you back like 3 more episodes, because I feel like we have barely touched on all that I wanted to ask you. But there are a couple final questions as we start to wind down. We've touched a little bit on the whole, rejection is protection, and it's easy to think we're not doing the tough stuff, but when you actually just hit pause for a hot minute and take account of everything that you've accomplished, and the things you've succeeded in, and the ups and downs and the valleys, it is a lot of tough stuff. And sometimes I reflect on that even in my own life. Again, we're exactly the same age, but what would you tell 20-year-old Kate? Like, what would be, if 20-year-old Kate was like, oh God, I'm really struggling, or I'm just unsure, I'm feeling so insecure today, I just don't know what direction to go. Like, what would you say?
The universe will unfold exactly as it should.
Okay. Done.
Done.
Drop the mic.
Next.
Let it go, 20-year-old Kate.
Yeah. Yeah.
It will all play out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
It's a really good reminder.
It will. It's
Can't hear that enough.
yeah. It's how I'm gonna utilize that in my elder years, which are rapidly approaching. We'll see. But yeah.
I have a sticker on my laptop that my wife gave me, and it's just it's an illustration. It's just a caric, like a caricature of a woman in on a farm, and it says, just take a deep breath and everything's going to be okay. I mean, that's it. It's just a sticker that says that, but it's true. It's like, boy, do I look at that thing on the regular, on the daily. Well, Kate, oh man, for one, this is just fun to sit down and chit chat with you and
Yeah.
have a talk and see you in your home, and just, I learned a lot. There's a lot of things, as much as I've, like I said, been so fortunate to be in community with you, and get to know you over the years, and have experiences with you and your friend circle and some of our dear, similar friends. But I really did catch some new stories that I've never heard.
Oh, good.
So you're not going to get off the hook. I want to know. Here we are, this many years later, this brand and this company that you've built, and you've let us know very clearly here, it's not about scaling. It's not about becoming some, big corporation or company. It's about putting Kate Endle illustrations out in the world. And I do have a little thing called Content Snare, that I'm so grateful for, that my guests fill out a couple, some fill it out a lot, the whole thing, some put a couple words, but you said something in that I think is so important as we close out the final question, is that you want people to feel joy when they consume or experience what you create. And I just was like, I love that. And I feel that.
Good.
When I leave this studio and walk into my kitchen, I'm going to look at my Kate Endle. I have 2 Kate Endles in the bathroom. Like, it makes me feel happy and more at ease and lighter. So
Well,
I'm only one of your customers, but I'm going to say nailed it. But what do you see as, if you had to choose one superpower that you are most proud of, and that you feel like you bring to the table each day? Maybe some days easier than others, but what would that superpower be for you, Kate?
I am a joy spreader. I mean, not 100% all the time, but I do know how to spread the joy.
Yes, you do. You sure do. I love that. Well, keep spreading, Keep bringing that joy. And we are so grateful that you're out here and you're doing it. You're staying the course and, you're authentically creating all of your art. For those listening, it's going to be in the copy, but just give us a quick drum roll. Where can we learn more about Kate? Where can we buy Kate Endle illustrations? Can you share a little bit about all those places, even if it's just a drive-by, because it's going to also be in the episode copy?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's kateendle.com. That's my website, and that's where my online shop is located. And then also on my website, upcoming events, if you click on that link, you'll go to my calendar, and that's where my market days. I sell at Pike Place Market down in downtown Seattle a couple days a week, and my phone number is there. So if you're going to that calendar and you want to know when I'm going to be at Pike Place Market, just make sure you text me so I can tell you A, where I have set up for the day, and B, that I've actually made it into work. Because if I don't want to go into work that day, I ain't going to work that day. So that gives me an idea of, what kind of items that you're looking for and how I can make sure I've got the right product and the right time for us to hang out, and you can shop it up with me.
Excellent. Well,
Yep.
Thank you for that, Kate. I sure appreciate all the time you've given me today and this episode and our show. And I'm going to invite you back because there's a lot of things that we just did not have time for. But there's always episode 2.
You know who's a real good person for you to talk to, who we've mentioned, is Chris Ballew. He knows how to.
I'd love it.
He knows how to spin a yarn.
I would be honored. So let him know.
Yeah.
I'm going to be stalking him next week and getting him on the calendar.
Yeah, you guys will get on like a house on fire.
Oh my God, that'll be so fun. He's such a cool guy.
I know.
Awesome.
He's cutie funny.
He is so cute. He's a keeper. Thank you, Kate, so much for being on the show. I had a blast.
You're so very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Bye. Thanks so much for joining me for this episode. If you enjoyed it, I hope you'll make it easy for others to enjoy it too. You can do that by subscribing, writing a review, and sharing episode links with others. Then you'll be my superhero.